All right. So, what's your name and where are you from?
I'm Kitchen Sink. Grew up in Maine.
In Portland?
I'm from Central Maine, but I've spent most of my adult life in Portland, Maine.
Awesome. Okay, so Kitchen Sink. Tell me about that name. How did you get it?
So, I did my first long distance hike in 2020, doing all of Maine, and I'll keep a brief version of that. But I had picked out a name I was going to go by, which was an anagram of my real name, and I posted on Facebook something like, once I got my pack packed, it was like over 80 pounds, and I was like, with the weight of my pack, they probably should call me Kitchen Sink instead of the name I had picked out. And all of my friends, everybody I knew, hikers and stuff, were all like, yes, that's what you should go with. And it goes, so it was just kind of like a no-brainer. So I said, all right, I'll let go of that other name and I'll go with Kitchen Sink. And but it goes back to childhood and growing up. My parents are divorced, and I would spend weekends at my dad's house, and even at that young of an age, and as a bicycle commuter in Portland, Maine for 20 years, I would always pack a heavy pack. Like as a kid, three or four bags just for like 2 nights at my dad's, and then bicycle commuting in Portland, I would always have a pretty like 35-pound pack just to go back and forth to work, with extra clothing and gear and books and just everything I thought I needed all the time. So it's as I said, it's a lifelong affliction, overpacking. So even though I've got my pack weight, it certainly isn't 80 pounds anymore. It's dialed in a little bit better, but I still kind of own that name, and I have things that I carry that just personal things that I never tell anybody about. I carried a rubber hand puppet of a lizard for like 2 seasons and never told anybody about it, just kept it in my pack. It was just this, I called him Bathtub Jim. It was Kitchen Sink and Bathtub Jim. And while I was hiking, I never shared this with anyone either, but I would make up voices for him, and we'd have conversations and talk. And
wow.
So yeah, so me and Bathtub Jim, but nobody ever knew about him. He just was in my pack, and that was it.
So why did you like having Bathtub Jim? You know, I mean, because so much that we do is really for approval of others, and
yeah. So it was just sort of a fun little thing for me. Actually, you know what? I had forgotten about this. It goes back to just before I came on that trip in 2020. I had done a three-week hospital stay I'd had a mental breakdown, and I talked about a lot of the stuff we talked about in the I was in an outpatient program and group therapy and stuff like that, and a lot of what we talked about is how people with PTSD and other mental illnesses spend a lot of their life in their lower brain, in their lizard brain, their fight, flight, or freeze. And the idea is to get out of your lizard brain and get into your higher functioning, your rider and horse, as they would describe it. So that lizard, for that time, was sort of a reminder to get out of my lizard brain.
Wow.
So that was why I carried it.
And so did Bathtub Jim kind of play the lizard part of your
Not
brain?
really. It then just became this silly, goofy thing that I just had these goofy conversations with.
Well, it's super cool to
but I had actually forgotten that was why I carried him until you just asked. Like,
yeah, it
I
was.
had completely forgotten about it, but that was why I was the first carrier. Awesome.
Yo, I'm taking a little interview.
Sorry.
Yeah, get in there.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Perfect. Perfect. Thank
Same
you.
one too.
Awesome.
I got you
That'll
two.
be
I
perfect.
got an 80 and a
Awesome.
20.
Yeah, that'll work. That'll work great.
You mind if we keep going?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you said so much interesting stuff. So I have a couple questions, but first, you mentioned your other name, and I wonder. See if he'll be done with that in a minute.
He's doing his suck and blow job. That's what I call it. He he blows the leaves and stuff, and then he does the vacuum. So I call him our suck and blow guy.
Nice. Everybody needs one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talked about your other name and like your given name
My given
as
name,
by
yeah.
your parents.
Right.
And so it sounds like, well, I wonder, do you identify more with the name that you currently use when you're on trail, like
I do.
Kitchen Sink?
Yeah. So I've been Kitchen Sink pretty much since 2020, and I was Kitchen Sink pretty much. I did a through hike attempt in 21, and then went straight from being a through hiker to working at hostels. So from March of 21 to July of 22, I was exclusively Kitchen Sink, and I went home for a month in July just to take care of some personal things. And that 1 month, I had, when people said my real name, I had to like think about it. And so yeah, so 4 years of living on trail. Like I spend about maybe 2 months a year at home, and those 2 months I have, when I hear people say my real name, I have to like, who are you talking to? Oh yeah, that's my name.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like you've almost forgotten about that. I mean, I don't know if you could say that person. Like, do you feel like...
Yeah, it is a little bit like a different person. You do kind of come to identify with your trail identity more, for sure.
So you mentioned earlier something I found interesting about. So your parents were divorced, and your given name was...
Yeah, so I'm the second. I was named for my father, and my father, my parents are divorced, so, in a way, like anytime my mom would say my name, she was basically using the name of someone she had come to, have very hard feelings towards. And so my name was basically a constant reminder of someone that she in some ways despised. And so that had its own thing, and I always just felt, because I was named for my father, I had a hand-me-down. I didn't get my own original name. I had someone else's. And it even comes in, but it does come into play, like, I don't have anything signed, but I'm doing artwork here, and I sign things K with a backwards S. And that's by design, because my real name also begins with a K. And the backwards S, so for years I would sign my artwork KII, K2, because I'm the second.
Yeah.
So now I sign it K, as Kitchen Sink, I sign it K backwards S, because a backwards S also looks like a 2. So it's still K2, but it's also Kitchen Sink.
Yeah, so if I can extrapolate a little from that, then, the like Kitchen Sink isn't necessarily a completely new person, but just like a, another take on who you
Sure.
were. I mean, so both,
Yeah, it's like an extension and an adaptation, the next level. It's my Pokemon evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's my Charizard or whatever my Raichu or whatever, however you want to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you found a moonstone or something.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people don't, like, a lot of people are given, I don't want to say their names are boring, but a lot of people are given common names by their parents.
Oh, yes, by their parents. Yeah.
By their parents, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, coming out here, being able to have a unique name is probably something really special.
Well, yeah, I mean, the names we're given as trail names are often more symbolic of our identity than a name we were given by our parents when we were born without our choice. I mean, there are lots of traditions, native traditions and such, of people being, and even in religious cultures, of getting a second name or a new name in adolescence. So it's sort of, if you think of it, as the trail names are an extension of that ritual or rite of passage. You're getting a name that is more succinct with your identity.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask you about one other thing that you brought up.
Uh-huh.
So you talked about working with your mental health in the past, and like you were in that outpatient program. I'm curious if the trail has helped you with your mental health.
Oh, certainly, yeah. In fact, all of my friends comment that when I'm out on trail, I seem markedly happier than when I'm off trail.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, scientifically, you could just the act of being more physically active increases dopamine uptake. So there's that. But also there's just the connection with nature. There's the social element, the connecting with people. A lot of people, when you ask them, what was your favorite thing about trail? Almost across the board, most people are going to tell you that it was the people, it was the community, especially on the AT. You get that more on the AT than you do any of the other long distance hiking trails, the community. And so that's a big part of what is healing as well. But certainly the exercise, certainly being out in nature, and it's all of it. It's all elements of that.
And those things are often missing in people's ordinary lives.
They can be, yeah.
So.
Yeah, because ordinary life can be isolating at times. So, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so let me just ask like 2 more questions if you don't mind.
Okay, all right.
They're probably shorter. So what can you think of like a happy memory or anything you remember from the trail, an experience that you've had? Anything you like about the trail?
Yeah, anything like a specific?
Yeah.
Well, so I'm going to tell you about my first hiking experience ever, like my first time hiking.
Please do.
I was 14, and my buddies had all signed up to go on an outing club trip. It was the first outing club trip of the year. I'm from Maine, and so the inaugural outing club trip every year is up Katahdin. And so my first hiking trip ever was up Katahdin, Mount Katahdin. And that was when I first heard about the trail, and I've been basically dreaming about doing a through hike since then, since I was 14. And to just put it in perspective, that was 34 years ago. And that first hike was so unbelievable. It just opened something up in me. Also, it was my first experience with, are you familiar with the Call of the Void?
No, can you tell me about it?
Yeah, so the Call of the Void is a phenomenon that happens to some people. It's when you get in a high spot, high place, and you have this like voice inside your head saying jump, jump, jump. Like, it's pretty scary. Like, the first time it happens to you, it's pretty freaky. But it is a phenomenon that happens to a lot of people. There's some theories that it goes back to, being our time in the tree, ancestrally, our evolutionally, our time in the trees and gauging distance and that kind of stuff. But just that first time, I had that feeling, and I mentioned it to our outing club advisor, and all my friends kind of laughed when I said it, but he's like, no, that's a thing that happens to people.
Okay, so I have a question. Is that anything like, if you're driving and there's like a cliff next to you, and like you have like or sometimes there's like a strange urge. I know that this is not just me. I know I've heard lots of people say this. There's like a strange urge to just turn into off the cliff.
It's got to be the same thing. It has a name though. It's called Call of the Void.
Wow.
Yeah. So that freaked me out, but at the same time, it was invigorating. And that first time, I don't know why our outing club advisor decided to do this, but we did we started at Roaring Brook Campground. We went up to Chimney Pond, up Cathedral, across to Baxter Peak, which is the highest point on Katahdin, and then across Knife's Edge, and down Knife's Edge to down Heel and Taylor Trail back to Roaring Brook. So we basically circled the entire mountain in that one trip.
Wow. And
I didn't even know enough to be scared on Knife's Edge. I was like 14. It was my first hike. I didn't even know I should be scared. I thought it was awesome, and so I I realize you're asking me about this trip, but that moment on trail was just on on Katahdin was just so unbelievable. It's sort of like your first love. It's like the way all future, you know, it measures up about all future experiences. So that was what really brought me to the Appalachian Trail when it came time, when all the right pieces were in my life to start long distance hiking. But so I always love getting up Katahdin. It's certainly my number one of all my favorite spots on trail.
Okay, so the Call of the Void, I'm still curious about that. Do you like take any meaning from that, or is it just like an interesting? Was it just an interesting experience?
Just an interesting primal thing. I mean, it still happens sometimes.
Yeah.
You just have to. I mean, usually your response is, you know, the voice is saying jump, 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 and you're like, no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like,
Same with the car thing.
I will die. Like even in my darkest depressive moments, there's still this like self-preservation that kicks in.
Totally. Well, I've thought about that in the past, and I've thought maybe the reason you think about that is so that you consider how bad it would be if you did it, and you avoid doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah. I don't think anyone really knows why, you know, but it is a phenomenon. You can look it up. Google Call of the Void.
Cool. Okay, final question.
Okay.
What gives you meaning in life?
What gives me meaning in life?
Yes.
So the biggest thing I am out here to do is generally, people have come to know me as someone who's extremely kind and giving, empathetic. And so that's like my biggest drive, my biggest motivator, is being kind to others. I sign in all of the logbooks. When I sign the logbooks, I have a quote thing that I carry, various quotes, and I put a different quote in every logbook that I sign. However, I always use a signature quote that's mine, that I end it with. And it's always, and I end my YouTube videos with this quote as well. And it's, I reserve my trust and friendship for those who display empathy, kindness, and gratitude. So that kind of sums up, yeah,
I love
who I am and my drive.
Awesome. Yeah, it's kind of like love for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. Okay.
Absolutely.
Kitchen Sink, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have a great hike.
No problem. You too. Trails.